The attacker hit Janet repeatedly in the head with a blunt object, maybe a crowbar. Our world can be a crazy place. One minute you're calm and collected. The next, everything gets turned upside down. That's exactly what happened to Janet Brown in 1995. She was a well-respected nurse, a good wife, and a loving mom, just going about her life. Then, one night in her peaceful little town, everything changed. Radnaj was a picture-perfect village, rolling hills, quiet lanes, a million miles away from the city craziness. But behind closed doors in Janet's house, something terrible happened. Her life was cut short in the one place she should have felt safest, her own home. As darkness fell on that night, Janet had no idea the peace she knew would be shattered forever. Someone snuck into her house. For reasons we still don't know, what followed was a nightmare that left everyone in the quiet town reeling. What went down in that house, where a family should have felt safe and happy, is beyond messed up. It makes you wonder what people are capable of and how safe we really are. But don't worry, we'll get into all the details. We'll find out what happened that night and see if anyone ever paid for this horrible crime. Just hold on tight, because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Hey, True Crime fam, buckle up, because Crimeco is back with another chilling case that will send shivers down your spine. We all love a good mystery, one that keeps us guessing and peeking over our shoulders. Here at Crimeco, we're all about unraveling those tangled threads, bringing you the stories that haunt our collective memory. So, if you're ready for a deep dive into the dark side, hit that subscribe button and smash that like button. It fuels our hunt for the truth. Now, grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and prepare to crack open a case that'll leave you saying, "Wait, what?" All right, detectives, let's get cracking. Nestled in the Chiltern Hills, the village of Radnaj was like something out of a postcard. Winding roads, cute little houses with straw roofs, and rolling green fields. It was the perfect English countryside escape. But under that pretty face, something dark was about to happen, forever changing its reputation as a peaceful place. The Brown family lived in a big farmhouse on a huge estate, worth a hopping £345,000 back in 1995. It was secluded and quiet, far away from anyone bothering them. Being so far out, though, turned out to be a bit of a problem. The pretty country roads that led to their house were also perfect for someone who didn't want to be seen, especially at night. Even though it looked like paradise, things hadn't always been peaceful for the Browns. There had been some break-ins in the area, and Janet, ever the good neighbor, started a neighborhood watch program to keep everyone safe. Sadly, she had no idea that no matter how hard she tried to protect her family and home, something evil was waiting in the dark, ready to strike when they least expected it. As night fell on Radnaj, the peace and quiet were about to be shattered in a terrible way. Janet Brown was born in 1944 in a cute seaside town called Southampton. She was an only child, and even as a kid, she cared about everyone around her. This kindness would later lead her to become a nurse. After becoming a nurse, Janet landed an awesome job at Oxford University, doing research to help doctors learn more about medicine and how to keep people healthy. She loved her work and felt good knowing she was making a difference. Life got even better when Janet met and married Graham, a big shot at a fancy medicine company. Together, they had 3 wonderful kids and decided to raise them in a peaceful little village called Radnaj. They bought a big farmhouse on a huge piece of land, perfect for family fun and barbecues. Graham's job meant he traveled a lot, but Janet held everything together at home. Her kids always came first, and she made sure they had everything they needed. Janet wasn't just a great nurse and mom, though. She also cared a lot about her neighbors. Where there were a few robberies in the area, she started a neighborhood watch program to keep everyone safe. Sadly, even though Janet did so much for her community, it wasn't enough to protect her from the awful thing that happened in April of 1995. Night fell over the quiet countryside, and Janet was alone in the big farmhouse. Her husband was on a business trip to Switzerland, and her older kids were away at college. Even her youngest child was having a sleepover at a friend's house. For once, Janet had the house to herself, a rare moment of peace. But she had no idea this quiet time was about to turn into a horrific nightmare. Sometime after 8:20 p.m., someone broke into the house. We don't know if they just meant to steal things or if they had something much worse in mind, but either way, they came in armed with tools that would be used for a terrible crime. Janet didn't stand a chance. She was completely surprised and quickly overpowered. The intruder handcuffed and gagged her, leaving her defenseless. What happened next was awful. In a shocking display of violence, the attacker hit Janet repeatedly in the head with a blunt object, maybe a crowbar. The blows were so severe that they ended her life. In a last-ditch effort to get help, Janet might have hit a panic button in her room. The alarm blared through the night, but it was too late. The attacker didn't care. They just kept going, even walking around the house and washing their hands, like they were trying to get rid of any evidence. The whole thing left Radnaj shaken. This peaceful town couldn't believe something so awful could happen here. How could someone be so cruel to a kind woman who spent her life helping others? The next morning, around 8:11 a.m., a builder named Nick Marshall and his son were working on the Browns' garage. That's when they found Janet. She was lying lifeless at the bottom of the stairs. The attack was brutal. It would forever scar everyone who saw what happened. News of the crime spread like wildfire through the close-knit community. Everyone knew and loved Janet, a mom, a wife, a caring nurse. Losing her was a huge blow. It left a hole in everyone's heart, especially those who knew her well. The police were all over the Browns' house, trying to figure out who killed Janet. There were so many questions and theories flying around. It was hard to know what to believe. At first, they thought maybe someone broke in to steal stuff, but it went wrong. The way the killer got in seemed planned, but nothing was missing. Why break in and not take anything? It just didn't make sense. Then someone thought maybe Janet was having an affair, and it went bad, but that didn't add up with her. Everyone knew Janet loved her family. Another idea was maybe someone was after some secret information Janet had as a nurse, or maybe they tried to kidnap her or even hire a hitman. But none of these theories seemed very likely. There wasn't enough proof for any of them. The more the police looked into things, the creepier it got. The house was kind of isolated, and the killer seemed to know their way around perfectly. Maybe it was someone from the village itself. Radnaj was a close-knit community, so the idea that someone they knew might have done this was terrifying. A specialist brought in to help with the case, a guy named Dr. Paul Britton, had a theory that was pretty disturbing. Even though Janet wasn't attacked sexually, he thought maybe the whole thing was about the killer wanting to feel powerful and scare the living daylights out of her. The way Janet was attacked, and how the killer just took their time, even with the alarm going off, made it seem like they weren't after money. It was something much darker. The longer the investigation went on, the more freaked out everyone in Radnaj got. The lead detective, Martin Short, was in over his head. Every theory they came up with just didn't fit all the facts. Short even admitted it publicly, saying something like, "Honestly, there's no explanation for what happened that night that makes complete sense. Everything we think we know keeps getting contradicted by the evidence. And cops, well, we gotta deal in facts." The killers seemed to have planned everything out. They brought tools and knew what they were doing, but why they did it, that was a complete mystery. Detective Short didn't think it was a robbery because the killer didn't seem to care about the alarm or if anyone saw them. By the second year, the police had talked to over 2,700 people, but whoever did this to Janet was still out there, a ghost haunting the once peaceful town of Radnaj. Then, just as the Janet Brown case seemed to be going cold, a new twist emerged that sent shivers down everyone's spine. 2 years after Janet's murder, almost to the day, something awful happened just 10 miles away in a town called Woburn Green. A woman named Carol Ann Jackson, who dealt in jewelry and antiques, was found dead in her own home. Like Janet, she was around 50 years old and had been tied up and brutally attacked. The way she was killed was very similar to Janet, hit with something heavy and suffocated. The police couldn't ignore the similarities. Both women were about the same age, careful about security, and killed in their own houses, places where they should have felt safe. The investigators immediately started looking into whether these two crimes were connected, hoping to finally catch whoever was responsible. In Carol Ann's case, things got even creepier. The police suspected she might have been targeted because of her job. Apparently, Carol Ann had complained to the police a few times about someone following her and even acting strange outside her house. The detective leading the investigation thought the killer might have been waiting for Carol Ann to come back from a trip, then attacked her as she unloaded her car, all to steal her valuable antiques. The crime scene at Carol Ann's house was awful. Her hands and feet were tied up, probably to make her tell them where she kept her valuables. A fancy watch she wore every day for years was gone, stolen along with other jewelry. The worst part, a special bracelet from the 1930s was missing too. It was a constant reminder of how cruel this crime was. Then, a glimmer of hope. Someone said they saw a strange person hanging around the woods near Carol Ann's house that night. The police searched the area and found a bag with clothes, towels, and a flashlight. Was this the killer's stuff, or just a red herring? They weren't sure. Theories flew around. Maybe it was connected to other robberies happening in the area. Some even thought it might be the work of a famous gang called the Quality Street Gang. It seemed like there could be a bigger criminal group involved, which made everyone even more scared. Years passed, and the murders of Janet Brown and Carol Ann Jackson remained unsolved, leaving a dark cloud hanging over Radmadge and Woburn Green. But in 2015, a spark of hope flickered. The police announced a major development. They found DNA at the scene of Janet's murder. This tiny piece of evidence, like a silent witness, could finally identify the person who tore their lives apart. Excited about this new clue, the police launched a huge operation. They swabbed DNA from over 700 men in the area. That's a lot of people. Each sample was like a puzzle piece, potentially bringing them closer to the truth after all these years. But as the results came back, disappointment set in. None of the DNA matched. The killer's identity remained a mystery, their genetic code a puzzle no one could solve. The investigation wasn't over, though. A new detective, Peter Barron, took charge and decided to take a fresh look at the idea of a burglary gone wrong. This theory had been around for a while. Barron believed it could be the key. His idea was scary. Maybe the killer wasn't some professional criminal. Maybe it was just a burglar, or even a group of them, who weren't very good at what they did. They surprised Janet, tied her up to control her, and then things went south. Barron thought they probably panicked when the alarm went off and ended up killing Janet in a moment of fear. It wasn't about getting rich anymore, it was about saving their own skins. This theory was dark, but it could explain the violence and why nothing was stolen. Maybe the attackers didn't even plan on hurting anyone, but things spiraled out of control. The years crept by, and still no answers in the murders of Janet Brown and Carol Ann Jackson. These once peaceful towns were shrouded in a heavy silence. But in 2020, a glimmer of hope. The police teamed up with a crime-stopping group and offered a hopping £20,000 reward for any information that could lead to an arrest. Maybe someone out there knew something, someone who held a missing piece of the puzzle. Sadly, even with this huge reward, the mystery remained. The killers of Janet and Carol Ann were still free, their motives as dark and hidden as ever. Yet, the investigators wouldn't give up. Each year that passed only made them more determined to bring these cases to a close. Of course, as time went on, the memories of Janet and Carol Ann began to fade for most people. New stories filled the headlines, new tragedies unfolded. But for the families, the pain was ever present, a constant ache in their hearts. These murders were a brutal reminder of how precious life is and how cruel people can be. Janet and Carol Ann will never be forgotten. Their loved ones will keep their memories alive, and the investigators will keep searching for the truth. Their stories remind us to cherish the good times, to hold our loved ones close, and to never give up fighting for what's right. This might be a scary story, but it also teaches us valuable lessons. Let's remember to appreciate every moment, to value our families and communities, and to never stop believing that justice will prevail. For Janet, Carol Ann, and everyone affected by violence, let their memories be a guiding light. Even in the darkest times, the search for truth and a better world must go on. All right, guys, before you dash off into the night, Don't forget to hit that like button. It lets us know you're digging the content, and that keeps the creepy cases coming your way. While you're at it, smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. You don't want to miss our next dive into the mysterious unknown. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you on the flip side for another mind-blowing case. Until then, stay curious.